Well, it's Chuck here. Haven't posted anything in a while, partly because I've been disgusted with YouTube's degradation of its platform, and because with so many topics to discuss, I don't know where to begin. So this week I have a copy of the Arizona Capital Times. It is a weekly publication all about the wretched goings-on in our state capital here in Phoenix, Arizona. And I'll show you this week's cover dated July 20th. Arizona Capital Times, the headline this week, A Desert Mirage, which refers to a border fence which was going to be sponsored by our state senator Steve Smith, and he had all kinds of businesses that were ready to donate free materials, and they were going to build it with free inmate labor, and everybody was going to donate millions upon tens of millions of dollars. And so far they've got $250,000 and they're going nowhere. In fact, 1 month they had to give somebody $3.50, and that was their take. And for the month of May this year, it says they took in zero. So the point is, a fence is not going to solve the problem. There are way more issues at stake. But we've got the Capital Times here, and they sponsored a Meet the Candidates reception last week. And I'd written an essay about religious tolerance, and they saw it fit to publish. So if we flip over to page 6 here, we'll see the headline they chose out of some of the words in there. And it says, Challenging Cathi Herrod, the self-appointed sheriff of wombs and bedrooms, which is a fit title, self-appointed sheriff of wombs and bedrooms. That's Cathi Herrod. So I wrote this commentary, and I will read it to you now. Congress, and by definition states, shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. These beginning clauses to the First Amendment of our Bill of Rights are rooted in the Flushing Remonstrance of 1657. This was a religious declaration of independence drawn up by 30 residents of the New Netherland colony willing to forfeit freedom, property, and their very presence in the New World to protest Dutch Governor Stuyvesant's ban on Quaker worship. You see, Peter Stuyvesant was a bigot of his day, and he only allowed worship through the Dutch Reformed Church, and described Quakers as seducers of the people and banned the other residents of the colony from having anything to do with them. At which point these folks got together and signed this historic document, which stated, kind of in summation, that no mortal man must come between a Christian's right to honor and serve his Creator according to his own conscience. And I think that's pretty powerful, and I will read it again, that no mortal man must come between a Christian's right to honor and serve his Creator according to his own conscience. Now, Cathi Herrod is the head of an organization called the Center for Arizona Policy, and she now takes her anti-gay Christian jihad to the Arizona State Bar because they have a rule which mentions homosexuals, and that just lights a fire inside her like nobody's business. With Gestapo-like effectiveness, Arizona's self-appointed sheriff of wombs and bedrooms has bullied our state legislature this past decade, deputizing our elected representatives to do her bidding, and joining her mission from God to put her definition of Christian law into state statute, which is her center's sole mission. You might sum it up by saying, praise the Lord and pass the legislation. What becomes then of the strict constitutionalist, the Republican Party, those who should be upholding our separation of church and state when Miss Cathi Herrod comes to call? If they do not goose-step to her drum, she threatens to have them unseated in their primaries, and she has done so over the last 6 years. We have no moderates left in our Republican Party because they can't pass her anti-gay, anti-abortion litmus test. Thus, these strict constitutionalists all vanished like the proverbial Cheshire cat. Sadly, with this single-minded holy war at the forefront, other things have also vanished. Our thriving economy, the equity in our homes, and an affordable college education for our children. Has this horrendous price really been worth it? As the nation was divided over slavery in a great war 150 years ago, our nation is now equally divided on issues dealing with abortion and homosexuality. There are millions of good Christians who believe these issues are between God and individual conscience, just as those 30 brave signers of the Flushing Remonstrance 355 years ago. I have no reservation stating that Christians with a Taliban or Shiite mindset do not well serve the Lord. In dividing a nation against itself, they do the devil's work. To borrow an old quote from the McCarthy hearings in the 1950s, Cathi Herrod, have you at long last no sense of decency? After I wrote this, I thought about President Lincoln's statement, that a house divided against itself cannot stand. He uttered this in 1858, just after he was chosen as the Republican representative who would be the party's nominee for senator, and he lost to Douglas in the Lincoln-Douglas debates 1858, and Douglas became senator. But I thought how much those words are still important today. A house divided against itself cannot stand. I went to the net to look to see where Lincoln might have gotten those words from, and I was amazed. They came from St. Mark the Apostle, and you will find them in the Bible in the New Testament under Mark chapter 3, verse 25, that a house divided against itself cannot stand. So I don't understand Cathi Herrod's constant tirade about how homosexuals are destroying the family. Has she looked on a TV screen lately at the filth that's broadcast into her home on a nightly basis if it's turned on? Shows like American Dad and the Family Guy, which have sexual innuendo every 30 seconds. The reality shows that show people lying to each other and treating each other like dirt. And meanwhile, the homosexuals are locked up inside their own dwellings, minding their own business. They have nothing to do with other people's families. And there's all this filth on TV, yet she constantly attacks homosexuals. Well, why doesn't she contact the advertisers for some of these TV shows and see if she can get some of that filth off the air? It's ironic in the state of Arizona because our two highest elected officials, both Republicans, both have sons who have been put on trial as sexual predators. Our senior Senator John McCain went on the airwaves 6 years ago, "Please support me in supporting marriage." And back then I didn't know that he had dumped his first wife so he could marry a millionheiress, who is the head of Budweiser Distilling in Arizona. It really just galls me that these people claim to be the arbiters of moral values when their own houses are so dirty themselves. There's another phrase in the Bible that says, quit trying to point out the speck in your brother's eye when you've got a beam blocking your own eyesight. So, Cathi, why don't you just leave the homosexuals alone and find something more concrete to do to support and save family values?